Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Carberry, and I want to talk to you about why I wrote my book, The Death of American Healthcare. I wrote this book based on lots of books that I've read over the years. And the reason I wrote the book is because when I started reading the information that led to that book, I was appalled. There's some statistics about our healthcare system and how expensive it is and how ineffective it is. We have the most expensive healthcare in the world, bar none. We are 4.2% of the world's population, and our healthcare bill is 51% of the world's healthcare bill. Well, that's a lot. If you look and see the Office of Economic and Cooperative Development of the United Nations, they actually look to see of the top countries who has the most expensive healthcare, and it was the United States. They did it by person, so per citizen or per capita. So ours came out to be about $12,000 per capita. A lot of other countries were down around $3,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 per capita. But you look at that and you go, what was the total healthcare bill? In 2021, it was 4.3 trillion with a T dollars. That's a lot of money. But we passed a bill called the Affordable Care Act 10 years before that, in around 2010, 2011. What did that do? What was the price of healthcare back then? The price of healthcare back then was 2.4 trillion. The Affordable Care Act actually doubled the cost of healthcare in the United States. That sounds odd to me. I don't know about you. What do we get for that? Of all the countries in the Office of Economic and Cooperative Development of the United Nations, I think there's about 35 countries in that group. The United States has the lowest life expectancy, the highest death from preventable conditions, the highest infant mortality, and the highest suicide rates. You look at that, you go, how's that even possible? We have the most expensive healthcare and the lowest life expectancy? That doesn't even make sense. Most people don't know this fact. Life expectancy in the United States has gone down probably 5 years in a row for the last 5 years. It has never done that before in history. The closest we came to that was in World War I, 2017, 2018. At the same time, there was a pandemic called the Spanish flu. Those two things together caused us to have a declining death rate 3 years in a row. But now we're 5 years in a row, and there is no Spanish flu. There was COVID, but it was declining long before COVID. And then we don't have a war going on that's killing a lot of our soldiers. We were at war, but we're not at war now. And we still have a declining death rate. Why is that? Well, that's why I wrote this book. In this book, we look at a lot of different facts, a lot of different things about why our healthcare is so expensive, why our healthcare is so ineffective. And I believe because of one simple concept, and that is that we focus too much on the symptom and not enough on the cause of the symptom. Or we focus too much on a lab value and not why did the lab value go up or down. So if you're trying to balance a lab value, that's a way different outcome than trying to get somebody healthy. Trying to get somebody healthy is asking the question, why is this body, which has a condition or a state called homeostasis? What homeostasis means is the condition of maintaining a healthy, viable state. Meaning, if you have little things go wrong, which we do all the time, you repair them on an ongoing basis. That is homeostasis. For example, cells in your body do not last forever. And there's a life expectancy of different cells in your body. For example, the heart. I've heard studies that say the heart cells only last 6 to 12 months. But even if it is 12 months, that means every year you have a new heart. So why do people have heart disease for years and years? Obviously, there's something interfering with the body's ability to repair that heart effectively. So then that would make you go, maybe we should look at the nervous system. Or maybe we should look at the food that person's putting in their body, which is a whole nother story. Our food is not the same. I wrote this book because I was concerned about things like our diet, our food, our healthcare system, how expensive it was, how ineffective it was. Now, to give you a couple examples of that, the most expensive thing in healthcare is pain from spinal conditions. That is a $460 billion problem. If you look at that, you go, okay, that's a lot of money. That's more money than is spent on heart disease. That is more money than is spent on cancer. There's more money than is spent on diabetes. It's a pretty major problem. The most common part of your body you're going to have a problem with is your spine. When you look at that, you go, is it just pain? Because that's what our healthcare system has reduced it to. No, it affects the nervous system. In previous videos, I explained how when your spine actually works, it is sending information to your brain from the spinal joints. Also, the nervous system goes right through the spine, so a malfunction of that spine could be interfering with the way that nervous system functions. When you're dealing with the spine, you would be a really bad doctor if you didn't consider how it affects your nervous system. So these are all concepts that I wrote this book for, because I wanted people to be aware, hey, we're getting more unhealthy, not more healthy. And where's that going to lead to? Since I wrote the book, first of all, let me say this. I read a lot of different books by a lot of different authors, just to name a few. Eustace Mullins' Murder by Injection, The Serpent on the Staff by Walensky and Brune, about the American Medical Association, different books that led me to say this information needs to be compiled in one spot. When I read those books back in the 90s, I actually, when we went back and looked at the data in 2017 and 16, when we were writing this book, the book was published in 2018, the stats were way worse than when I read them back in the 90s. They're even worse now, because we're not doing anything to make the system better. And there's a lot of examples I can give you for that. But our healthcare system is in dire need of change. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be checked on. What we have done in this country for way too long is said medical authorities know more than us, therefore they should tell us what to do. That's irresponsible for a person to take that viewpoint about their own body, because you're saying, I'll give somebody else the credit of what I should do and what I shouldn't do instead of learning it myself. Let me give you an example why that could be dangerous. Let's just take the example of appendicitis. The appendix is a little tiny fleshy organ hanging off of your intestines. And for years we were told it's not even, there's not even a function for it, so it's useless. The only problem with the appendix is it can get infected, and if it does, it can cause some pretty terrible problems if that appendix ruptures. The thought was to remove it. There was even a viewpoint back in 1928 by a Dr. Miles Brune, who said, you know what? If people have an infected appendix, this was a traditional medical theory back in 1928 by Dr. Brune. If people have an infected appendix, we should let them perish, because we'll remove their inferior genes from our gene pool. And his conclusion was, people who get appendicitis are of low moral character, poor genetics, and we should just get them out of our genetic pool. That's crazy. I don't even know how he got away with that. They changed their viewpoint on that, but even studies as late as 2018 from Johns Hopkins were saying there's really no function for the appendix and it's not a problem to take it out. There was a thing called incidental appendectomies. What that means is, when you get any type of abdominal surgery, while they're in there, they're going to take your appendix out just because it has no function, and should it ever get infected, it could be a problem for you. So 64% of all the appendectomies done on women, let me rephrase that. 64% of all the appendectomies from 1979 to 1984 were done on women in an incidental manner, meaning there was nothing wrong with their appendix, but they took it out anyway. Now you fast forward to 2024, and there's articles that I just read online saying, we realize there is a function for the appendix, and actually it houses healthy bacteria. It's like a little safe house for your healthy bacteria to retreat to when there's something like chronic diarrhea or massive diarrhea, because diarrhea will wipe out all of your good bacteria. And then what happens is, when that episode is over, the healthy bacteria come out of that little safe house, the appendix, and repopulate in your colon. If you don't have those healthy bacteria in your colon, you will die. So there is an appendix purpose. There's also studies now that are saying people who have appendectomies are 46% more likely to have irritable bowel syndrome, or they're more likely to have infections or immune compromise. Now all of a sudden, because it took us over 100 years to figure out there is a little function for that appendix, what about all the people who got treated? There was one study I said that people who have their appendix taken out statistically live significantly shorter than people who don't. And I go, who do I know that had my appendix out? My father had his appendix out. He died at the age of 62. I'm actually older than he was. So maybe we shouldn't be taking that thing out incidentally. Now, if it's infected and ruptured, I have a daughter who had a ruptured appendix. She had to have it taken out. But you need to do things to make up for the loss of that little storage shed. You need to make sure you keep your healthy bacteria in your intestine corrected. So this is just an example of why I wrote this book, because there's viewpoints that were so bizarre. I just gave you 2 examples from the appendix that's now starting to shift and saying, oops, sorry, we made a mistake, shouldn't take them out. There's a reason for this thing. If we start looking at function instead of symptoms, we'll have a whole different viewpoint on just about everything in healthcare. And that's all I'm asking for. I'm not saying get rid of anybody. We need surgeons in case there's a bad problem and that somebody needs surgery. We need medication in case somebody's in a life-threatening situation and they need medication. But if we start paying attention to increasing and improving function more than trying to get rid of symptoms, maybe we won't have so many medical problems. Maybe the cost of our healthcare system will start to come back down. And I gotta tell you, even the most expensive chiropractic case is tremendously less expensive than surgery. So if we started focusing on things like function, and doctors like chiropractors who focus on function, maybe we would start to reduce the need for the more dramatic interventions and reduce the cost of healthcare. That's what I think we should do, and that's why I'm talking to you. By the way, if you want a copy of this book, you can get it by dialing 888-777-0815 and ask, how do I get a copy of Dr. Carberry's book? And they will help you do that. So get the book. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. And just a reminder, if you have any questions or you want to leave a comment, please do so. We really like to hear what you have to say. And if you want to subscribe, that really helps us out. So like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.